I've chosen this for a reason because it's so easy for us to get lost in our religious thinking that we miss the point. And I think that that is a big part of what was driving Jesus completely nuts there in that rant he was having about people being religious rather than acting religious. I'm going to go back to Brother David Stendhal Rast. This is a little audio section of him talking with Krista Tippett about gratitude in an episode of On Being, and he puts a little bit of context onto how we can fall off our loving ideals into the ideas rather than actually this outpouring of a living fire. So let me share this audio with you.
How do you talk about the distinction, the connection between religion and spirituality? Those two words. I feel like this is something people are very curious about, and we're evolving our understanding of that.
Religion is a difficult word because it really combines two very, very different things. And you're never quite sure which one you're talking about when you say religion. Humans are religious beings, all humans. That means we are open towards this great mystery that some use the word God for, but whether they use it or not, we are all confronted with that great mystery as human beings. And in that sense, religiousness is very close to spirituality. The other thing is, out of this religiousness, human beings have at certain times in history created historical and social bodies that are called the religions or the religious traditions. Usually starts with a founder that is a particularly spiritual person, deeply spiritual person, and then it kind of gets a life of its own. It kind of hardens, it kind of freezes. So I compare these religions that we find in the world with sort of old volcanoes. At one time they were spewing fire and were a gorgeous spectacle, and now the lava has hardened and nobody will recognize that that was at one point fire. It's all rock. But here and there somebody comes along, like Mother Teresa or Oscar Romero or Cesar Chavez, whoever, and makes a little crack and out comes this live fire again. And there you have to do it with the warmth and fervor of your own heart. Each one of us, we have a certain responsibility if we stand in a particular religion. Mm-hmm. And that has its own great advantages because it gives us forms, it gives us examples, it gives us relatives, all the others that ever belong to it and will belong to it. It's a good, healthy embedding, but it also costs a lot of work, inner work.
I love his Austrian accent. He's a very, very wise man. Brother David Stendhal Rast. I recommend you do a little Google search on him at some point in your life. So here he is talking about the fact that it takes work to bring spirit into organized religion. And the work that he's referring to is what I call spiritual practice, something a Benedictine monk knows a lot about because their whole day is infused with prayer and other forms of spiritual practice. And today I want to talk about some spiritual practices that can help us walk our talk as people of faith. It's very easy to become hypocrites. Now, earlier we were hearing a youth-friendly version of the Bible with Jesus really ranting about hypocrisy. What is a hypocrite? A hypocrite is an actor. And Richard Rohr says that any hierarchical religious organization will create actors. It's just part of what happens. And I think that we need to actively work against this. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Recently, I was listening to a wise young woman in England who said that she'd noticed that when people do prison ministry, sometimes they don't care about the prisoners. They go in because they love Jesus. They don't actually love the prisoners. And I thought that was a very wise observation. That's an example of somebody living their life with this idea rather than living out the teaching. So what's the solution? Well, a very easy one for us to start with is to give power to our words and affirmations. And that's why I've woven in so many songs and chants into today's service. We have choice as humans, and the choice to choose our words and then to place them on our breath with the tune and melody is very powerful. Creation was sung into being, but also songs have a way of playing on repeat in our heart. You know, you get this, you don't even know where it comes from, but the song starts singing in your mind. They're very powerful. I used to have, I called him my thought companion. It was a man called Doug who was, I shared an office with him, and I used to like sing one little line of a song and see how long it would take before he started whistling it. It was my favorite work game, and it always worked. Songs are very, you know, they sing us into our being. So I invite us now to sing about what Brother David Steindl-Rast was saying about walking the talk and being the living lava and not this rigid religious form. And I got a great song for this, which is, if I can find it, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. I have so many songs in here that I'm not finding it. Ah, there it is. Excellent. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. And I don't have the third verse. I'm going to sing it anyway, because I know some of you know it. Make me a channel of your peace. It's in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all that we receive, in dying that we're born to eternal life. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Sorry about that missing third verse. The things that we say about ourselves, the songs that we sing, the beliefs that we say out loud, do inform our actions, and our actions become our habits and so forth. Richard Rohr says that how we do anything is how we do everything. And he's hinting at mindfulness and us using our choice. being self-determined and not just reacting through our emotions or following the crowd. Words are really magical. They really are a sacred gift. And a pen is an incredible thought tool, a means of channeling thoughtfulness and mindfulness. And in Buddhism, they talk about right speech. Another great tool for us in walking our talk as people of faith is using the holy pause, bringing spaciousness into our thinking. And a really good way that many people, including me, do this is with the phrase from Psalm 46, "Be still and know that I am God." I'm going to share a practice that my seminary taught me, and I set it to music, where you say the line, but each time you drop off a word. I'm sure you've heard me do this before, so I'm going to sing the line, and then you're welcome to sing it back. And we'll just drop into this teaching through song and through our breath. So I'll sing the line, and then I'll play the guitar and leave space for you to sing it back. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Let's do that again. I invite you this time to close your eyes. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Invite you to slow your breathing down a little bit as we rest in the space where the song once was. I'd like to ask the Zoom for your wisdom. So there's quite a few people here, and I suspect that I'm not the only person that uses that phrase, "be still and know that I am God," or an adaptation of it. I often say, "Be still and know that I am love." Is there anybody here who also uses that phrase and might be willing to talk about that and how they use it, and where do they say it? Do they write it down? What do you do with that phrase? How do you make that real?
So I actually learned that song from you, Simon, and I use it when I'm hiking through the Olympic Mountains, through the giant trees and through the meadows. And it's really been a very calming and spiritual way for me to connect. So I thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's Ted, isn't it? Yeah. That's
Yes, it is.
a perfect setting of that. Uh-huh. And I'm sure it makes you feel very different than if you weren't singing it.
Yes, it does. It really allows me to connect much better than I ever had before. So it's been really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Glynis, yes.
I had an interesting kind of. It's not about this song, but when you were saying how songs kind of grip you and come upon you at the right time, that happened to me this morning. I was going over in my mind about a woman who was challenging me on Facebook about Christians in general and how they were so fundamental and preachy and proselytizing, and she just brought up all the things that she hated about Christians, and I started telling her about our church, and then that song, "You Know We Are Christians by Our Love," came into my head, and I just started singing it, and I don't know why it came, but it was there. So I do rely on that music sometimes in my life, and it's really fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a reason that movies have soundtracks behind them, because we as humans have soundtracks underneath our life. Yeah. Glynis, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Anybody, before I move on and leave Be Still and Know That I'm God and talk about something else, does anybody else want to share on that? Okay. Great. One of the aspects of Be Still and Know That I'm God is creating a pause, but it can be used more rigorously or more scientifically. There's a saint called Saint Ignatius of Loyola. I know how to say this, it's just because I'm on Zoom and I'm nervous that I can't say his name. Saint Ignatius of Loyola. He has this wonderful practice that I was introduced to years ago by my friend who's a nun, of reflecting on your day at the end of the day and seeing what was life-giving to you and life-draining. And it's called the Examen prayer. And often people will do an invocation to the sacred, a prayer, or they might say Maranatha, which means "Come, Lord, Maranatha." God, give me clarity in my thinking. And then they'll reflect upon the day, and there'll be two parts to this. One is about gratitude and really savoring the kindness that you received, the abundance that we are given every day, savoring that, noticing. And the other part is really looking at where we were drained and a self-examination of our behavior. Now, one of the three amigos, Jamal, you might know him, an imam. I remember going to hear him talk, and he said that he keeps a little notepad in his back pocket, and every time he transgresses his beliefs, so every time he catches himself doing something that is out of alignment with his faith, he notes it down, and at the end of the day he reads through those, and then I imagine he rips it up and lets it go. But it's a universal practice, so this isn't just a Saint Ignatius thing. It's something that other spiritual practices do as well. So I'm going to bring that back to the wisdom on Zoom again. Is there anybody on the Zoom who does the Examen prayer or has a nighttime reflection that they use? And if so, would you be willing to talk about it, how you do it, how it benefits you? Glynis, Go for it, please. Please share your wisdom.
I'm sorry about jumping in all the time, but I don't do this every day, but I do. I remember learning a song or hearing a song in church that was "Guide me, lead me, hold me, heal me," and I often run that by my head in the evening or sometimes the morning too, or just at the right time when it's needed. And it just gives me a lot of solace. So that is a different prayer, but it's one way I examine myself, I guess.
Well, when we do it during the day or in our life, everyone's a bit different about that. In the monastic practices, which I'm so influenced by, they have different things at different times of day. Like morning is the gratitude time, and nighttime is the reflection upon the day. Does anybody else want to speak about this before I move on? Claudia, yes, please.
I have something hanging over my coffee machine that I read in the morning, and it says, "Don't start your day with the broken pieces of yesterday. Every day that we wake up is the first day of the rest of our lives."
Wow.
I know, I like it.
They say that to bring in a new habit or a new prayer, let's say it that way, if you link it to something that you do every day, so brushing your teeth or drinking coffee, it's a really good way of setting yourself up for success. So coffee is a very sacred time for me, actually. It's when I do the be still. I have a little, I got it for $5, rocking chair over there, and I look out at the hill and I drink my coffee, and it is a very holy time of day for me. So we share that. Even though you're using it more affirmingly, whereas mine is more just a receptive witnessing. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So the examine prayer is precise and useful. It's helpful. If you want to know more about that, you're welcome to email me, because there's a bunch of resources, or you could just Google Abbey of the Arts and the Examine Prayer. My friend Christine talks about this quite a lot. She's the abbess of Abbey of the Arts. Now, the last thing I want to share about how to walk our talk, there's so many ways, so I only focused on 3 because I didn't want to keep you until tomorrow. I want us to focus on living out compassion. Now, I believe that compassion comes naturally to us. It is natural for us to respond with loving kindness when there's no threat. But we get knocks and blows from life, and that can really cover over our heart. And it can be very painful to live from the heart. But all the religious traditions tell us that this is what we need to do. Compassion, and to a lesser extent, gratitude, seem to be bridges that unite our religious thinking with that living fire, that living volcano that Brother Stendhal Rast was talking about. I've got a video for us to watch. Hopefully my internet will be good enough. It's from people in recovery talking about compassion. It's about 3 minutes long, and I found it very interesting. I hope you will find it interesting too, and then afterwards I'll reflect a little bit more.
When I think about compassion, I think about a very deep sense of understanding what your pain must be like for you. When I listen to your story, I think about what is that like? What does that feel like? And am I able to empathize enough to be able to really be compassionate and have a sense of not feeling it myself, but understanding what that feeling must be like for you? I think compassion represents getting outside of yourself. You know, so often it's me, you know, this is what I feel, this is how I do things, this is what I think. And I think compassion is just the opposite. I think compassion is coming outside of who I am to be able to meet you at your point of pain.
Well, in an undefended heart, you're able to receive love, and you live that. You're lived in it. Whatever life is comes out of that space. And once that, once you taste that, once that happens, in conversations, there's this sense in which there's almost this part of love that's watching for that road to open, for that stone to break open, for that seam to crack, so that there can be a movement towards that with another person. And that's where life is.
What if you don't think you're beautiful?
That's why we need each other. That's why in my own mind, an addict will tell you that my mind is a dangerous place to be. I should never go in there alone. And so even the community of the mind has to be brought in relationship, right? So I wake up today feeling a bit of a shame attack. And what I have to do is I can either try to manage that shame, and in the way that I do it, my management always compounds the shame. What I have to do is take that shame and place it between me and another person in a vulnerable state, so that that person can remind me who I am, because I can't be reminded of it. I can't find the door out of shame. Shame has no door, right? It's just four walls and voices over and over and over that tell us the same thing. You're not loved. You're not good enough. You've screwed this up. And you can't manage that voice. In the end, it has to be surrendered in relationship, so that a brother and a sister can say, that may be real. It's not true. This is who you are. And that's the lived love.
I love the way he talked about an unguarded heart. And also the man talking about the shame being locked inside a room with four walls and no door. To me, this sounds very much like where two or more gather in my name being applied to this man's life. Now, I've got the full length of that video talking about compassion, and also two other videos by Greg Braden that I'm about to talk about now, up on the site that I have hidden on my website for the church, which is simondevoil.com/Suquamish. And the two videos by Greg Braden, his name is Gregg, Greg Braden, and he talks a lot about how important compassion is in transcending the ego and aligning the mind and the heart. Let me read some of his words. In the West, compassion is often mistaken for pity, where we feel sorry for another person. And he says, when I worked with the monks and the nuns in Tibet through the translators, this was not the way that they thought of compassion. Compassion is the end sequence that begins with sympathy, moves into empathy, and then becomes compassion. So sympathy, we are not experiencing the hurt or pain, but we're acknowledging the hurt or pain of the other person. So that's the first foot on the way towards compassion, is sympathy. The next step is empathy. In empathy, we're actually feeling the pain of another person. And Greg says, brain scans actually show that when we empathize with someone's pain, the pain centers in the brain of the person empathizing light up in the same place as the person who's in pain, but to a lesser extent. The third step, he says, is compassion. Compassion is defined as the emotional experience where we first accept the suffering of another without judgment. It's a very Buddhist concept, he says. Without judgment, without attachment to the outcome, to the rightness or the wrongness or the goodness or the badness. This is what gives compassion so much power, he says. When we're stuck in the rightness or wrongness of what we're seeing, that is smaller. Compassion, we accept the suffering without judgment. And what happens here is that we're holding a space for a greater outcome to come forward. He says that's the way that the Tibetan monks define compassion. The attachment is the polarization, the rightness or the wrongness that stops us from being able to transcend. I found that really interesting. And he, in a different video, which I've also linked in case you want to follow up on this, he lays out a pathway of praying with our mind and our heart together. The first thing that he suggests we do is to touch our heart. I mean, often prayers are like this anyway. He says that when our awareness naturally goes to the parts of us that are touched. So rather than thinking about the heart, we actually place our hands on the heart. Then we slow down our breathing so that we're signaling that we're not in fight or flight. And then the third thing is that you focus on feelings of appreciation, gratitude, care, or compassion. And he says that doing this puts us in a prayer state. It's very interesting. He goes into the neurobiology of the brain cells that are in the heart. That was a speed tour of Greg Braden. I didn't do him justice at all. But what I want to say is that there's science here as well as religious teachings that teach us that bringing our ideas about God into our heart and embodying them and then acting out upon those are very powerful. And I got a wee song that helps me do this, and I thought that you probably would know this one. I thought that we would close with this prayer of Donna Nobis. Donna Nobis Pacem Pacem. Donna Nobis Pacem. I'm going to pause just in case you don't know Latin and you don't know this song. It means give us peace. But for me, it's very much a sending out. It's a song that really helps me focus on compassion for all beings, for this entire planet. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. So I urge you to go out and walk your talk, whether that's through affirmations, through singing your affirmations, through examining your life, or through focusing on compassion, and even better yet, acts of compassion that allow you to serve the other person with love and kindness. We're going to transition now in